Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this first webinar in our 2024 series for the MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific cohort. This webinar is entitled Perfecting Your Pitch, with a focus on perfecting your pitch video. I'll introduce you to our moderator for today in just a moment, and she'll in turn introduce you to our speakers. My name is Frederick Nybig. I'm the Managing Director for MedTech Innovator based here in Singapore. With me from our Singapore office is Glenn Lim, as well as Bernice Tan, who many of you know. We are thrilled to also be live streaming this event on both YouTube and LinkedIn. And the format here, for those of you who are not familiar with this, we'll do 1 hour of panel discussion, and that will all be live streamed. We will then close the live stream, and the last 30 minutes will be closed door Q&A for our 2024 cohort companies only. So that begins about 1 hour from now. So one last piece of housekeeping for our participating cohort companies. Kindly rename yourself. Just put your name and then a dash and the name of your company, please, so we can call on you later when you have questions. With that, let me hand over to our host and moderator for today's session, Ayelet Marom. Ayelet is based at our Los Angeles office. She's also the Vice President Global Programs. Ayelet, over to you.
Thank you, Frederick, and hi everyone. It's great seeing everyone here. I know some of you personally, and looking forward to getting to know the rest. The reason for this, the opportunity, I should say, for this fun webinar today is the 1 minute video that we are asking you as part of the program to prepare for your company. This is an activity that traditionally at MedTech Innovator we have been working with our companies to create and have had tremendous value to our companies. And today with us we have two of our alumni that will join us today in talking about the process of creating that video, the value of creating that video, and their personal experience in creating that 1 minute video, their tips, their tricks, so on and so forth. And then we'll be here to answer your questions. So I'll start with introducing my two panelists. So we'll start with you, Sachin. Sachin Dubey is the CEO and co-founder of Module Innovation, based in India, and was the winner of the 1 minute video competition for 2023, the APAC cohort of 2023. Hi, Sachin.
Hi, Ayelet. Thank you for having me.
So Sachin, if you don't mind, we'll start with you. If you could introduce yourself a little bit, tell us very briefly about Module Innovation, and then following that, I will play the 1 minute video that was the winner of the 2023 video competition.
Great. So hi, everyone. My name is Sachin Dubey, and as Ayelet mentioned, I am the co-founder and CEO of Module Innovations. Module Innovations is a company which is based out of India, and in India in Pune, which is primarily working in the area of precision diagnostics for infectious diseases, and largely operating in the space of AMR, which again you will see from the video. By training, I am actually a nanotechnology engineer and chief fellow from the University of Oxford. Largely, I think I would sort of date back exactly a year back when I was listening to a panel like that, and how do we create an effective video which not only emphasizes what you do, but is something which is very much relevant for an audience which comprises different kinds of stakeholders. So yeah, I mean, I would be very happy to share my experiences of how we did that, how we're actually able to win the prize. But yeah, so that's largely about me, and really happy to see the video once again.
Thank you, Sachin, and we'll talk a lot about all of these aspects during the webinar. So I will start with sharing a module innovation video.
I still remember meeting that lady in a regional hospital in India whose child died of a resistant bacterial infection. He could have been saved if a timely diagnosis would have been done. Antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, is the next pandemic. In 2019, AMR killed more people than HIV and malaria combined. Antibiotics have transformed modern medicine, but its inappropriate use has led to dangerous bacteria develop deadly resistance. The current methods to diagnose bacterial resistance are time-consuming. We need evidence and personalized antibiotics. For that, we need rapid tests. Model Innovations is building AST Sense, which is one of the world's fastest phenotypic tests to detect bacterial resistance. AST Sense is ultra-rapid, affordable, near point of care and connected test. Based on our patented technology, we see bacteria grow or die faster than the conventional method. We will not let bacteria win the war. Are you with us?
Thank you, such a great video. We'll talk more about this later. And now we'll move on to our second panelist here. So Jim West, hi. Jim is the former CEO of Clara Biotech and was the winner of the 2021 inaugural cohort for BioTools Innovator Video Competition. I'll let Jim introduce himself and his new position that might be of interest to all of you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ayelet. Nice to meet you all. So I'm an engineer and a business person, so I have a master's in biomedical product development. And while I was getting my master's degree, I actually got an offer to come to Singapore and do a master's in entrepreneurship at NTU. And so I got to live in Singapore for a little bit. Back around 2009, so got to see a lot of Southeast Asia. It was a fun time, and still have a lot of friends over in that part of the world. But I spent a large part of my career kind of in the startup side of medical devices, worked in engineering roles, product design, development, manufacturing, and then I can kind of get into quality, regulatory, and things like that. Ended up working with a company, getting one of the first mobile medical devices cleared by the FDA, using an iPhone as a stethoscope, and ended up working with the company before they were a medtech innovator company called Novian Health out of Chicago, and worked my way doing engineering there, doing a cancer laser ablation therapy product. And then I left all that in 2018 to start Clara Biotech, where we licensed some technology from the University of Kansas. And I spent 5 years building that up, went through BioTools Innovator in its inaugural year back in 2021, did win Best Video. And then I was able to exit that company last summer. So I took a few months off and then reached back out to Ayelet, and I was like, hey, you know, what's going on? Who should I talk to? What's the kind of next for me? And she let me know that they were looking for a director of the program and asked if I wanted to do it. So I've been here since October, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm here excited to kind of meet you guys and help you also win the best video.
Thank you. I'm going to show Clara Biotech's video now.
And I do promise one of you will win after working with us.
All right.
Clara Biotech was founded to help move exosomes from the bench to the bedside. Exosomes are nanoparticles made by all cells and act as the FedEx communication system of the body. We believe exosomes offer the promise to diagnose and cure diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer. The benefits of our platform is both in the purity and the specificity of our product and output, as well as a scalable processing platform. Exosomes have been notoriously difficult to purify until now. The industry requires pure exosomes in a scalable platform, and Clara offers a solution.
That allows us to have the exosomes ready for downstream applications, which is very appealing to researchers therapeutic companies and diagnostic companies.
Our company is going to be developing manufacturing and quality support for diagnostic applications, therapeutic manufacturing, and regenerative medicine. It's going to enable the next generation of technologies.
Okay, thank you. Two fantastic videos that, not surprisingly, won the best video competition. So let's dive right in. That's a question for both of you, really. Let's start with the high level. What was really the value that you both got out of this video, and what were your did it really answer the goals that you had coming into creating that video? Let's start with you, Jim.
Oh, okay. I didn't really know what to expect until I made it into the program. They're like, by the way, you're going to make a video. And I was like, oh, okay. And it seemed like a distraction. We were building our company, we were growing our team, we were raising funding, we were doing a whole lot of things other than making a video. But to be honest, at the end of the day, it probably ended up being one of the most valuable things that we did in the program. At least on the BioTool side, and it's probably similar on the medical device side, though a little easier. But like, people don't know what you do. They don't understand the product. They don't understand what you're doing, why it's important, anything like that. And for me, it was very difficult to get people, even conversations started, because they didn't even have a baseline of what we were working with. So for me, it was a great tool to open doors, to educate people and get them excited about what we were doing. I mean, you don't learn a lot about what we're doing from the video, but it excites you. And that was the point. So for me, I think the biggest piece of value from it was we ended up using it on our website as an intro piece. And then when, for example, I'd meet with an investor and they'd be like, hey, send me your pitch deck. And I got to the point, I was like, actually, instead of sending you my deck, which you're going to look at and not call me back, how about you watch this 1-minute video? And if you still want to talk, let me know. And that ended up working much better. So being able to tell your story in 1 minute, it takes a lot of work. It's very hard. As Mark Twain said, I didn't have enough time to write you a short message. It takes a lot of work to put these together, but at the end of the day, I really think it's worth it. And you're not going to do it on your own. You have to be forced to do it because you've got so many other important things to do. But I don't think you'll regret the effort you put into making your video.
We'll talk a little bit about this effort later in the webinar, but I want to turn the same question to you, Sachin, about what were your goals going into this and what ended up being the value of this video for you, and something that maybe add to that, something that Jim touched on. How did you end up using this video outside of this competition?
Right. Well, I think certainly to some of the points what Jim said, I would reiterate that as a startup, you're busy doing so many things, and when this requirement of building a video comes, initially it feels like a requirement to be part of the cohort and complete the program. But I think many of the companies working in the healthcare space are doing that kind of product development or science, which is not very common or understandable to only a certain sector of these stakeholders. If we want to project that to a larger or a wider set of audiences, there has to be a much simpler means of doing that. So I think one of the goals that we said was, can we make this larger complex problem of antimicrobial resistance so simple that it is understood by a child going in class 5? And with that goal, we started building this video. Of course, I think many of the thoughts that do we need to build it in certain way, how to build that were of course there. But one again, the larger value that came out, we did use it at multiple forums, and we did also use it at various larger government organizations where discussions about AMR happens. And I was very happy that in most of my presentations now, in the end, I do keep this video to summarize and give a glimpse of what we do. And we've been asked by many people who work in this space to like permission that if we can share this video in the larger context of people in AMR. So I think the larger goal of creating that vibe around what we do in a very simple format. And yes, what Jim said is true that creating a compelling video in 1 minute is very difficult. So we'll talk about the bits and pieces of how to make that effective in 1 minute. But yes, the larger goal was to create a powerful video in 1 minute, a short time, which conveys the message and breaks down the complex problem into smaller bits and pieces so that it works for a larger audience.
Thank you, Sachin. And I think, we hear this very often. We've been running this competition since, I believe, 2018. You're faced with a task initially, right? You need to create a video. You didn't initially plan on it. And a lot of our companies come back and thank us for making them create that video, for the guidance for creating that video, and really for helping to tell this story. So we'll dive a little bit into the different aspects of what does it mean to make a video and how does that help you with other aspects of your business. Maybe let's start with what are kind of the key elements that you brought into this video or that you thought were important to bring into the video when you were telling your story. Sachin, maybe let's start with you.
Yeah. So again, I think we were very keen on explaining the larger problem of AMR because unless there is interest in this problem to the wider audience, it doesn't create the kind of impact that we wanted to come from this video. So you will see that a lot of it has been initially put to make everybody aware that what is antimicrobial resistance and if adequate steps are not taken, what is going to happen. So I think one of the challenges was to, again, how do we simplify this? And it's if I go and talk to a person who is buying an antibiotic from a pharmacy store, and if I show him this video, will he be actually able to understand that is what he's doing is right or wrong? So I think this was the foremost challenge, and that's what we started to as we said that we need to eat the ugliest frog first, and so we started with explaining the larger set of problems of AMR, what it can do, and then probably build on to the solution that we are creating, the science that is going behind it, and eventually how this is going to, create that kind of impact, add value to all the stakeholders. So this was the approach that we took, that what is the larger problem? How do we simplify that? Eventually following up with what we are building. If, of course, when we did review a lot of other videos, we saw that if you have a very strong technology which has a lot of IPs, it should definitely come out because this video goes to a lot of investors as well. So if you're creating one video, why don't you make something which is usable at multiple forums? So largely, I think we broke down this video into these kind of 3 or 4 major segments of the problem, then the solution, and then what, if it comes out, what change or larger good it will do.
And I think that's a key thing you said there at the end about using that video for different purposes, using those different parts of the video for different purposes. That's something that if you plan ahead and have enough time to create that video, we heard from a lot of our companies that have really utilized this, really took some more footage than needed and have used it in multiple scenarios for multiple needs and for future use. So I think that's a really important point right there. Jim, how about you? What are some of the key elements that you thought were important to bring into the video?
Yeah, well, I agree with everything Sachin said. I think from a high level, and especially if you're kind of new to startups and CEO roles and things like that, I think ultimately the job of the CEO, the most important job of the CEO, is to be the storyteller for the company, and this helps you with that job. So I think a mistake that I've seen a lot of companies make is, it kind of goes back to that marketing of features versus benefits. And if you approach it from a product perspective and you say, hey, our product is doing this and this is how it works, if it's a product explainer video, that's not going to excite anybody. And that's not really the purpose of this video. And it won't be well received because nobody wants to watch an explainer video about your product. And it's gonna have a timeline on it too, because your product's gonna change. It's going to change and pivot and grow as your company grows. So don't make a product explainer video, make a why us what we're doing video. And this is a chance for putting faces and, people to a company. And so really tell your story, tell why you're doing what you're doing, how you're going to change the world. And you don't have to get into how exactly you're going to do it. If you have time, you can, but really it's about you and why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important. And if you tell the story about all that, it'll really resonate with the audience. So really think about like the message you want to tell. And you really want to think about it in terms of creating a timeless piece. You want to think in 5 years, in 10 years, can I still show someone this video and make it be relevant? If you approach it from that angle and think of it from a storytelling perspective, I think you'll do well. In terms of the elements as well, I think it's a very iterative process. You're not going to get it on the first try. You're not going to get it on the first go. It's gonna be polished and scrubbed and refined. So think of it as an iterative process, not a one-off, quick and done. And think of it in terms of like, maybe go back to your pitch deck, and you can't do a whole pitch deck. You got 1 minute, but just think about some of the elements you want to pick up from your story and really highlight and tell. So,
So maybe let's go.
Yeah, go
Maybe
ahead,
let's go into a little bit more detail on this exactly, right? You both focused on the storytelling aspect, and I couldn't agree more. These has been the most successful videos that were really telling a story, not as you said, not focusing on a product or a technical aspect, but more telling the story. How did you go about telling that story within that 1 minute frame? What was kind of your process for this? I'll go with Jim, as you've already started answering, and then
well, I was going to finish up the previous question too with I also did record more video than we needed, and I was able to turn that into multiple different pieces of other media with sort of one investment, and so it definitely paid dividends that way. And in terms of the second question, can you repeat it again? Sorry.
What was your process for really kind of honing in on that story, right? That storytelling is the most important aspect.
Yeah.
So how did you go about refining that story into 1 minute?
So this is really interesting because we hosted the BioTools MedTech version of this last week, and all of the panelists we had did a script. They wrote a script, they reviewed the script, and then they filmed a script. I actually found a videographer to help us, and I said, "Hey, do we want to write a script?" And they were like, "Nah, no, we don't." They were like documentary filmmakers. And they said, no, let's go ahead and just do interviews. We'll capture a bunch of footage. We'll interview everybody. And then we'll build the story from what we capture. And it ended up working out really well. I think both ways are viable. Like one's not better than the other per se. And I was a little surprised because I was leaning towards script, but they pushed us to do it in more of that free form. And it allowed us to really kind of build the story based on what was said and captured, which it was an interesting experience. But it wasn't extremely planned out ahead of time. And so it was really a lot of back and forth, like, yeah, that part doesn't make sense. This part's too complicated. And it was kind of an iterative process to pull the story out of it. And then we shared it with a lot of people to get their feedback. And that was really critical and important, again, to really kind of get to the meat of the 1 minute communicator.
That's really interesting, an interesting approach to this. How about you, Sachin? Did you take a similar approach, or did you script it out, kind of have to build this maybe with your team internally, maybe externally?
Yeah. So I think in this case, we took an approach which was slightly different to what Jim did, because we knew that we sort of allocated some time and days for the team that this will be very much dedicated to the video itself. So that's why we created a script around that. Of course, the way we do the pitch deck, if you are doing a 1 minute pitch, that's how we created our context. And we had this one thought in mind that even if I just close my eyes and listen to the way somebody is speaking, am I able to still relate to that video? And that was one of the thoughts that we have in most of the case, a background noise, background sound, I would say, not noise, that continuously somebody is speaking about what is going on. So I sort of would say that we did not took a professional to do this. It was completely made in-house, and it was shot from phone. So it was, I would say that there are very good phones that are coming out. So we thought that if there is a way that we can capitalize that and make it much more personal in terms of, how a team can work on multiple fronts. So this was one of the thoughts, and we completely created that. Incidentally, I happened to, I was sort of interested in filmmaking before Module, and I had attended a lot of workshops with BBC to see that how do they create documentaries, and particularly science documentaries. And that experience actually helped us to create, the perfect storyboard, what should come as a video when there is a voiceover which is coming, when it should come. And because it was 1 minute, we thought of creating many shots. There were a lot of edits that went in. There was a lot of thought back and forth within the team that should we include this, that. So yeah, I mean, we took an approach which was script based, but because we were confined in time, we consciously chose this decision. It was all shot on phone. We did not take any professional help. Of course, not to
Well,
mention the softwares and everything else that we used.
No, that's great. I think it's two different approaches that led to fantastic storytelling. So I think there's a lot to learn from that. Let's talk a little bit about, you touched on it, both of you, but maybe expand a little bit on the the actual making of the video. So you talked about, Sachin, how you didn't use any external videographer or producer, anything like that. So did you use any other, any tools, anything that you would recommend people that are building their, especially if they're building a kind of a DIY video, is there anything that you'd recommend using? Any stock photos, videos, things that you integrated, music, all that kind of all these kind of resources?
Right. So I think if somebody will listen to the video carefully, then there are a lot of stock videos and stock music that has gone in. However, I mean, selecting those was a task, that something that resonates to what is being spoken and what is the theme of the video. Largely, I think we used some Adobe and iMovie software. So nothing beyond that, which went actually into creating. So yeah, I think we were aware that there are very good stock videos that can relate to the context that we are speaking, and that's why we actually chose that path of not. So I mean, if you see the video, there are shots which are actually into very different geographies, which is not possible for us to take, and that's why we thought, why not use the stock videos which are available. So each of the word that has been spoken actually resonates or coincides with a video or a photo that is being shown. So we mapped the words and the videos together. I think that is one of the approaches that is used by a lot of documentaries which are science-based, and we did use that approach. And also, of course, we did learn some of them by seeing the previous videos that have actually won the award. So yeah, I mean, largely, I think we did not use a lot of different softwares, something which are already available with the systems that you buy. I think that was it.
Okay, how about you, Jim? I know that you have used some professionals to put this together, but were there any tools that you specifically used to edit or to finalize
Yeah.
the video?
So we did use professionals, and it was important to me because I I used to be a 3D animator, like in another life before all of my other stuff. Um, so I had a little bit of a concept of all that, and I knew that getting high quality, well lit video with high quality equipment was impossible to fake. And so I wanted to start with something that would look professional and look like we were, professional. So I knew I had to get good lighting and good cameras to do that. And so I started asking around and got a couple quotes. There was a vast range in costs, and I think our first quote was $20,000 for a 1 minute video. That was far outside our budget. The second one I got was a guy who was a professional documentary videographer, and he said, I'll film it for you, but I won't edit it. You'll have to edit it because his was gonna be $20,000, and I'm like, I can't pay that. He's like, so I'll do it for like 6,000, and I'm like, yeah, it's still that's still kind of out of my budget. But again, with my background, I did feel comfortable doing the editing if I needed to. It's just very time consuming. And so for me, I use a lot of open source tools. So there's this program I've used called KDEnlive, KDENLIVE. It's a free open source video editor that's pretty professional. And it gets the job done. So I use that for a lot of stuff. I didn't end up doing our editing though, because I found another group that also was a documentary filmmaker group, and I basically went to them and I said, hey, I need help. I need to get this video made. I only have $2,000 as a budget. And I know that that's insulting, and I'm sorry, but that's what I got. And can you help me? And they said, yes, we will. And so they ended up doing everything. They brought in the cameras, they brought in the lights, they did all the editing, and it ended up working out very well. Um, and I also wanted to say, again, we didn't use any animations, which a lot of companies
Mm-hmm.
do use for good reasons. Um, but again, and as my background as a 3D animator person, I think know what your skills are. So if you've done video editing, feel free to jump in and do it. But if you haven't, probably not the time to start. But there's a program called Blender. It's also a free open source piece of software, and I used it for all of my product renderings. I would take it from CAD, I'd put it into Blender, and I'd make beautiful photorealistic pictures. And you can also use it for animations. It's a very professional piece of free software that is out there. So as a resource, if you've done it, if you've got some experience, there's tools, but if you haven't, then probably find people to help you. And in terms of finding people to help, the animations don't have to be crazy. You can go to websites like Upwork and others and find animators all over the world who can help you with different aspects of your process.
That's great. We'll share all of these names and links to some of these recommendations. I think these are fantastic recommendations. Thank you, Jim. Let's talk a little bit about timeline and cost. So, Jim, you talked about initial quotes. Would you mind sharing estimated cost and timeline that it took you to actually create that video?
Yeah. You want to have more time than you think you need, because you're going to need more time than you think you need. But once we got kind of everything set up, we set up one day, and the team came out. The whole team, my team came out. I put on a lab coat. It was the only time in the history of the company I wore a lab coat, but I put one on, and I was an actor that day in the lab. But we had 5 staff members on site, so it was the cost of that. And then we paid $2,000 to the videographer, and that was all we paid. So cash out of pocket for me was $2,000. I didn't do this, but I heard some people at the other session say this last year, and I thought it was brilliant. And that is, they actually said we offered them 1,000 or 1,500, and we told them that if we win, we'll share 10% or 15% of the award money with them as a bonus. And I was like, oh, I should have done that. That's really good. So it can be done.
Incentivizing.
I would say, you gotta get scrappy. So use your network, reach out to friends. Don't just assume because they say yes that they can do it. Make sure you look at their background, make sure you look at their portfolio and that they know what they're actually doing. I would also recommend, you guys are, for those of you who are near universities, I would also like maybe just scour the media groups. There's people in school for video production and things like that. I'm sure they would love a side project, a paid side project to help you guys with what you're doing.
Sachin, how about you? A kind of ballpark cost and timeline that it took you to create the video.
Yeah. So I think what I think to the point that Jim said, of course, you will need more time and more time. But yeah, we in terms of like creating the video, because we knew that what exactly should be going into the video in terms of we took the script way. So we wanted to record very specific videos. Of course, some of the videos that we recorded of the people working in the lab were shot impromptu. They did not know that they are being shot, so it came out to be very natural from that perspective. But wherever I think somebody is speaking, those videos were recorded with a perfectly curated script of what has to be said. That being said, I think we did not spend more than $200, probably because we bought some lights and microphones. That was it. The editing, I think I would agree to the point what Jim said, that if you have people who have some experience doing that, it's worth exploring. We did have people who have been into this space of, like using Blender, video editors and everything. So we just thought that if took their view that can this be something that they will be able to do, and that turned out okay. Of course, not the way it is being done by professionals. So all in all, I think in terms of creating the video from writing the script till getting the final piece was, I think, 6 days, I would say. Not full 6 days, but yeah, one day was dedicated for doing the shoots of people who speak, and then bits and pieces of getting it reiterated. It was more than 1 minute. Then we keep on cutting it short and something like that. So yeah, of course, like now we do a lot of other videos in terms of explaining what we do in terms of the larger problem associated things. So we keep using those $200 of lights and microphone for other videos that we shoot. But yeah, I think that was it. 200 USDs and 7 days.
If I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I didn't really talk about my timeline. So we spent 1 day filming, but I think we spent about 3 to 4 weeks going back and forth in edits. And so that was that. I don't know how many went through, probably 8 or 9 rounds of edits. And so that's where the time comes in. So get the filming done early, but the editing is where it gets like built. So yeah, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks of editing.
That's a really, really important point. Kind of work backwards. We are doing this webinar now so that you have time to start creating your videos, start thinking about your script or your story that you're telling in this video. Start working towards this already. We'll have some of the resources and guide. I think Bernice and the team here already shared a guide with you with some of the resources. And it's important to start, as Jim mentioned, already to plan your video and start even executing on this. As I think you have about 5 or 6 weeks to create that video. So I think that's a great time to start, as emphasized here. I'm going back to tools a little bit because of some of the comments that came up in the similar webinar that we did this week for our US-based cohort about AI and the use of AI tools in the making of the video. Did any of you use any or now know of any AI tools that could have been helpful in this process? I've heard everything from using ChatGPT for the text to AI tools in video and audio. Anything that you've used or could recommend?
Well, so I made my video in 2021, so AI wasn't really like a thing back then, but kind of looking at it now, what I know, if I was gonna do it today, I probably wouldn't do it for this video, but I have looked at a number of music makers, and you can create jingles and rap songs and ballads about technology and things like that that, are just ridiculous and probably good for social media or other things, but you can also use AI to make music, and so you could create a background or part of your program through that. Also, I know OpenAI now connects to Canva and things like that, so perhaps there's layouts and formats you could look at doing. Definitely in terms of like script writing, I would never use what comes out in my script, but I would go back and forth, and I would actually in presentations, I would go to ChatGPT and I'd give it my script and I'd be like, make it simpler or make it clearer or restate it. And oftentimes what comes back from that type of process is better than what I had. And so you can definitely, in terms of your script, you can polish sections and parts of it.
And just a quick tip here for everyone, you're all part of the general channel on Slack, where we have all of our alumni participating. A lot of them has commented in this webinar on use of AI tools. So feel free to reach out, ask questions there, and engage with other people in our ecosystem that have used this and can recommend some of these tools by all means. Anything to add there, Sachin?
No, I think I would sort of agree with Jim. While I feel that you have to be very, in terms of the way you speak or what script you are speaking, you have to be very much personal, because this is your mission and vision that you're sharing. But it's always good that if it's a complex language, why don't break it down using ChatGPT to a much simpler version of it. So yeah, I think he spoke what was essential.
Just a fun exercise you can all do is take whatever complicated description of your technology you have and go to the AI and say, explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or something, have it sort of restate it and reframe it. And it comes up with interesting ideas.
That's a great tip. All right, so I want to go back a little bit to the iterative process that you both mentioned. Maybe let's take you back to the beginning of the process. Did any of you watch other videos of other companies in the MedTech Innovator portfolio from previous years as a starting point, or other videos in general as a starting point, as a comparison, and where would you find such videos outside of the MedTech Innovator pages, which we will share with everyone. We have all the videos laid out on our web pages for all of our programs, and we'll share that with everyone, of course, to get some inspiration. Sachin, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think we definitely took some understanding of the larger theme that plays behind a video that has actually won. And it was something that we were actually able to figure out as a general template, that there are some key ingredients that are required to create the perfect recipe, and that was very much evident from the videos that were made and the past videos that have actually won. So yes, we did watch a lot of videos from the previous MedTech Innovator MedTech APAC BioTools cohort that were out there in the public domain. Also, I think the larger thought that videos like this, who is actually going to watch? So if it is like you're making the video for the investors only, then of course it's a different thought process. But in this MedTech Innovator space, the video will be watched by industry professionals, and also eventually would be seen by people on YouTube who would sort of like and share that, which maybe you can tell more about how the algorithm works. But creating that video, which was for a very wide audience, was very much helpful when we took a lot of inspiration from documentaries from BBC that were inclined on some people who were like mega icons, who how they lived their life, eventually how they triumphed in their journeys, and how they created that impact. So breaking down, I think, the larger video format into templates, that of course there was a big problem which was there. Then there was somebody like you who came up with that vision of changing the status quo, and eventually this is how with the products that you build, the company that you're building, it will change and create that impact. So I think it also resonates with people who have either seen this problem or could relate to it, and also resonates to the larger, wider set of audience who would see that on YouTube. So that I think that's the approach that we took.
I really support that. I think that emphasizing that impact is something that we always ask companies to do. Talk about the impact. What does that mean to someone watching? What does that mean to patients? What does that mean to the healthcare community? The impact is the end goal at the end of the day. And like you said, easy to identify with and empathize. So thank you for that comment. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, so this was the first year for BioTools Innovator. So I did watch MedTech Innovator videos from past cohorts.
You are the guinea pig.
I was, but you know, it was kind of it was an interesting process because I did a couple things that probably were not recommended. So like, you know, if you look at best practices, I didn't do them all. So one thing, you know, that's complicated is you got 1 minute, and one of my goals, I didn't really talk about this, but you know, I was trying to build a great culture at my company. I wanted everybody in the team to feel included and proud. And so I wanted to make sure everybody in the team got in the video just so that they could like point to it and be like, oh, look, I was in the video, I was a part of it, and, you know, get that buy-in. And so we ended up being able to bring in, you know, multiple speakers. I think we had three speakers on the video. But we did it in a way that it worked. And so we were able to pull it all together, and it wasn't confusing. It wasn't too disjointed, but you got to be careful because it's easy for it to get that way if you have too many pieces in this 1 minute video. But I think when you watch them, especially if you watch, you know, 10, 15, even 20 of them, probably not that many, but you'll start to notice a recipe,
A pattern.
a pattern. You know, there are things that a lot of the videos do that are good, that work. And then there's things that you'll notice, oh, you know, that doesn't work. And really, I think you just got to do the homework. Just do the homework, watch the videos, and you'll start. And as you do it, take notes. You're like, oh, I like how they did that. I like how they did that. And you'll kind of, you'll get all the pieces you want and need to put together for your video just by watching 5 or 10 of these.
Great advice. And as mentioned, we will share those videos. So take some time, look at some of the videos. Not necessarily have to be, by the way, in your specific field or your specific kind of technology. It's really about the storytelling, as our panelists have been saying here. Maybe before we jump into taking some questions, maybe let's talk about the end of the process, right? So after all this work you put into telling your story, refining it, creating that video, at the end of the day, what matters is the outcome, right? This is what everybody sees, and this is what will be shared online and in conferences and so on and so forth. How did you ensure the quality of the final product? Was there any process that you used, or anything that you, any benchmark that you used to say, this is a yay, this is an A, this stays on the floor, this goes into the video? How about you, Jim?
Okay. I think the most important thing for me was getting a lot of feedback. So every stage of the reviews, well, at least once we got past the first one, I'm like, okay, I think this one's good enough. I'd pick out 3 or 4 people that I knew, maybe some in the mentors in the program, or people sort of around me in that way. And then I'd also pick out some people who weren't at all even in life sciences or anything. And I got lots of feedback. And so early on, people are like, I don't understand your story. I don't follow it. You know, I still don't know what you're doing. It doesn't make sense. But then, you know, you kind of keep going back. That's the looping process. So for me, it's really getting a lot of outside perspective, because once you're in those weeds, you can't see the forest through the trees. So it's difficult to tell if it's good or not. So I think you got to share. I would recommend highly sharing it with friends, family, others, even if they don't understand what you do. That's even better, because if they get it and it resonates, then you got it, because that's the goal.
I like that. Sachin, how about you?
I think I completely second on what Jim said. We did as well, I think, because the larger thought was that is the message being conveyed in a simpler way. The whole crux of this exercise was that. So we did, of course, within the team, there were a lot of iterations in terms of what to trim, what not to trim, what is something that must go in the video, definitely should go, definitely can go out. But we did forward the video, shared it with people who could be the different stakeholders, like some of the investors, some of the clinicians. I did also forward that to my niece who studied in class 5. So the larger, breaking the complex word of antimicrobial resistance to such a simpler format that if she understands, definitely, there will be people who will be able to understand. So yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of back and forth. There were a lot of revisions that happened after this, and you are immune to what you make. Sometimes you do not see that there could be scope of improvement, and that's what actually came out when we started to get feedback. So definitely I think feedback is a must, and therefore if you have good amount of time, if you start early making this, then you can come up or pan out a very great video.
So I have
I'll
a quick
add to
story to
that.
share.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've
Go
got a
ahead.
quick story to share about this. So, being a good storyteller. So we had recorded our video, and it was clear that we needed a line and over like we had some audio that just played over some video, and I needed it to say something we didn't actually record ahead of time. And so I was like, okay, so I said the sentence into my microphone and I recorded it and I sent it over to the videographers and I was like, all right, guys, it's like here's an overlay audio. You can use this. And they were like, no, it's not good enough. It's not recording our equipment. It doesn't sound right. It changes. And I'm like, well, don't you have like a filter? Can't you just like, put it through some software and, equalize it and make it sound right? And they were like, no. So I had to actually travel out to them, and they brought out the same microphones. We went into like a room that wouldn't, have too much reverberation or, echoing. And I recorded this line. It took like 30 seconds once I got there. But that's part of what we did to ensure the quality. And it was annoying, but it paid off because when the video plays, you absolutely can't tell that wasn't recorded on the same day as everything else.
That's commitment. That's fantastic. Okay, so maybe kind of a last question before we jump into some of the questions from our audience here and in the live stream. Looking back now at this process, at the outcome of the video, at the final product, what would you do differently, if anything at all? Sachin.
Well, I probably would have increased the length of the video a bit, 10-15 seconds. But yeah, I think given that context and that kind of a scenario, I feel that this is one of the ways, definitely. Maybe when it goes out to if it is going to be streamed on a channel or event like that, maybe we would see that if we can involve some professionals at some stage. But of course, one of the views that we always had was that let's try to keep everything personal in terms of when people see that it was shot by the team themselves, edited. And I remember like in the grand finals, one of the companies cohort saying that we spent $5,000. How could you manage to win this award? So I feel that of course I wouldn't be changing a lot of it. The way it was kept simple, I think appealed to a larger audience. But going forward, I think at some point we would sort of drift and take some professional help as well.
I keep forgetting that asking panelists that are the winners, what would they do different, may be biased, but still, Jim.
Yeah, it's a tough question. Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot I would do different. I would just sort of maybe expand that there was immense value in creating the video. It did really help tell our story and get people interested in what we were doing. Winning the program got extra eyeballs on our company, which was great. And like I said, if you, I would absolutely, if you're putting the investment in to get cameras and lights out there, record a lot more than you need. In fact, you could even negotiate, we're going to do the 1 minute video here, but I also want a 2 minute explainer video, not the sexy one, just like you want your explainer video. We're going to make that too. And maybe there's some social media promotions, maybe you do. So think it out, plan it out. And then maybe you actually get 5 or 6 pieces of collateral out of it that don't cost you anything extra if you plan it right. But in terms of everything else, I feel we did a great job, and I don't really know how we could have done it better with the resources we had and where we were.
And maybe just to add one thing we could have done differently would have started much earlier in making this video. So that's a piece of advice to all the companies, that if they start thinking about this video right from today, maybe I think something even better could come out. We really don't know what better could have been done with these videos, but there's always scope. So start early.
Yeah, and to rebound on like if you can get professionals to help you, I would really recommend it, just because you have a lot of other things to do. You have so many things in the accelerator going on in addition to this, and you got your business to run and build. You've probably got fundraising to raise. So, if you're going to do all of this yourself, it's a big lift, and it does take a lot of time. So if you can really, if you can put some resources to having people help you, I would highly recommend getting help on this part of the project.
And I will add that, we've had winners that have put everything from $200 to $10,000 into making that video. Some that have done it themselves over the year, winners and others that produced fantastic videos with fantastic stories, all the way to using professionals, kind of a turnkey, get a video at the end of this, right? So really, we've seen a lot of we've seen a very various approaches to this. You don't necessarily have to put a lot of resources into it, and even if you want to use professional, just like Jim was mentioning earlier, there are students, there are professionals that will help you for a lower cost. So definitely try to use your network, your resources to do that. And to those of you that are, in the cohort, you have the opportunity, if you submit this early. Our team has seen collectively thousands of videos over the year. We're happy to help iterate on the video, give you feedback if you submit this ahead of the deadline. We still have time to kind of help you iterate based on some of the tips that we can share from all the videos that we've seen over the year, and kind of seen the success of some of these videos, and some of the pitfalls of the other videos. So I think with that, we would want to bid our online stream viewers farewell, so that we can move on to the Q&A portion, sorry, for our cohort. So panelists, don't go anywhere, but I would like to thank you here as we say goodbye to the online community watching us. So thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Jim.